Okay, I'm unmute. Can you all hear me? Everything's good. Okay. You know, when we just did that chant, I studied pretty tough Zen now that I'm understanding it for 12 years with a very tough teacher who was very wonderful. But we vow to, what is it? Hear it, study it. And I would always say, forget it. And I didn't consciously say that. I just, when we did our chant, I always said that. And there were so many people and it was so loud that no one heard me. And I didn't hear myself because I thought I was being good, but already, and it's true, I forgot it. I forgot it for a long time. It was in my body, but I didn't understand it. I think I didn't understand it till I wrote Writing Down the Bones. And when I wrote Writing Down the Bones, I thought, oh, this is what he's talking about. Before that, I didn't know. So, but I'm cleaning a dot off this, but I'm not talking about writing right now, though writing is very wonderful. And I had planned to talk about writing, but I decided what I'm going to do. The treat I'm going to give you is going to be, I'm giving the Dharma talk right before New Year's 2022. So, and that time I'll be with Noah again in the Zendo. So that will be nice. And I'll give you a special end of the year talk about literature, my favorite subject. But I've been, as Noah asked, I traveled. I got very settled in New Mexico for 3.5 months, but I had made plans to come to Port Townsend, where it's sea level, and which is nice for me because New Mexico is very high up, and it's supposedly not dry, but it hasn't rained here in 3 months. And New Mexico, it hasn't stopped raining. And now the air is full of smoke because the fires aren't big enough, I guess, to make national news, but there's huge fires in East Washington and the smoke is over here. So you get immediate headaches and sore throats going out. So, you can't run away no matter what you try to do. And I guess I'm the perfect example. But I flew into Seattle, and because there's such a change in altitude, I decided to stay 2 days in Seattle before I came here. And while I was there, you pay attention when you're traveling. You get a little sleepy when you're so comfortable, like I was in New Mexico. But I was paying attention, and so the hotel I was staying at had a free New York Times. Anyone could take it. So I took it. I know there are plenty of people who think the New York Times is terrible, and it might be, but they have clear writing. So I like that. And I was reading it. I went for breakfast and I was reading it. And then I was done. And I looked up and I said to the waiter, oh, there's so many terrible things. And he said, I can't read it anymore. I don't listen to any news. I don't listen to anything. I thought, okay, I understand. I used to be like that. And then I was done with the paper and I didn't want to throw it out. So I went to the 3 people at the table next to me and said, would you like a free New York Times? They looked at me and went, no. Okay, now this could be about the New York Times, I don't know. Then I went to another group, 2 men that looked like they'd just come in from the mountains. And I said, would you like the New York Times? They said, no. Unequivocally, they all said no. So I thought, I think I'll leave it on my table and let anyone who wants take it. And then I ran into 2 other people pretty soon after who both said to me, separately, I never look at the news anymore. I can't bear it. It's too awful. And so I don't look at it. And I thought, wait a minute, we all can't not look at it. it's important to know human suffering. It's important to know where people go and how we get spiraled out. But I realized 2 years ago, I had the same attitude. I couldn't bear it. And I also thought, but that's the reason I was pulled to Zen, was I wanted to be able to just hold things as they are, but not the news. But really, the world is us, and the world is painful and crazy. And I realized that in these 2 years, these last 2 years, I've been bearing it. And I didn't know I could. At the beginning, I thought, I can't, there's nothing in me that can bear this stuff. It's too much. Well, but it's always been bad. We haven't paid attention. Ask a Black person, ask an immigrant. They'll tell you a very different story. So I realized 2 things that I developed over the last 2 years that has really helped me. And I hope it'll help you, because we do have to pay attention, and please vote. It's really important to vote. Do not vote. Okay, the first thing, don't read the paper and think things have to be fair. I don't know where we got this idea that things are fair, and if they're not, they should be. Well, yes, that's very nice, but you open the paper, there's nothing fair. And that really helped me. I think I learned that in elementary school, where you can't do it because that would mean everybody has to do it, and they can't all do it, so you can't do it. I don't remember what it was I wanted to do, and I was sure nobody else wanted to. But that was always, it's not fair. And so that helped me a lot, because I would read about slavery and enslaved people, and even now, racism. And I would not only go crazy, I think, wait a minute, that it's completely not fair. Well, yes, it's not fair. And the next thing, which goes right along with it, Natalie, if you read the paper, don't look for logic. Don't look in the circumstances of the world for logic, for reality. There isn't any. It's very painful that there isn't any. Is there a logic to the bombings that we're doing now, that we see Russia doing, destroying towns, or Iran, what is happening there? So that helped me at least enter the world and to read about it. Don't look for fairness, and don't look for logic. Don't be blinded by these things, because they're not happening. And a human life really doesn't work that way. Look at your own life. Look at my life. Did I ever think I was going to be a writer? No. Did I look at all I know is 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 equals a squirrel, equals something that you just can't imagine. We're much richer than logic or fairness, but it would be nice if we had a ground of logic and fairness, but there isn't, because people are very hungry and are run by other things, by desire, by hate and violence and aggression, and by numbness, falling asleep, not checking out, wanting, not wanting. So I think that we have to get real, and I've been trying to. So there's a program in Santa Fe called the Renaissance, which they have often. It's interesting. It's lots of university teachers who retire to Santa Fe and then realized they missed teaching. So they they set up these classes so you can listen to a professor talking about their specialty or whatever they wanted to talk about. And I remember going to a talk by a man who did his PhD in James Joyce. And he read, what's the really hard James? Ulysses. He read it 8 times. I love that. I just love that. Ulysses 8 times, thick book and really difficult. You think Faulkner is hard. Ulysses is really hard. But anyway, they had a class. They have a class. It was Monday and next Monday on fascism. And I listened to it. My girlfriend, Maxine, sent it to me on Zoom. And I listened to it the first night I got here. I was hungry to hear, because we say, oh, that's fascism, that's fascistic. But I didn't really know what it was. And it was very helpful. And I'll tell you, because I think it's going to help you understand. And I kept feeling like, is this country going to fascism? And maybe parts of it have already been in fascism. And also, people who are supporting that direction, I fear, don't really know what fascism is. There's no freedom in it. But I want to just read you some. There's no policy, fascism. It's about power and staying in power at all costs. It doesn't matter. You could take any of the people that you know, Putin, and just study him, and it fits it. And maybe you know someone down the block who's like this, that it's really about power and staying in power. There's no logic or fairness to it. And there's a hierarchy because you always need someone below you. So it's always men above women, white people against people of color. In religion, it's usually Christianity against Judaism, Muslim, probably Buddhism. You know, we haven't had that yet, but Japan has certainly tasted it, and China has, probably India. So it's like that. And they're very simple slogans that you almost can't parse apart and analyze. There's nothing complicated. It's anti-intellectual. Don't think. I often would read about Mao, and I was always I was ponderous about, why did he kill all the intellectuals? Don't they need some smart people who've read a lot of books and can think? No, because those people who are thinking are going to go against the power structure. So there's no reasoning, and it's about a real hierarchy. And I read Caste by Isabel, who can tell me? Isabel Wilkerson. And she lays it out very well that caste, somebody, no matter how poor you are, how bad your life is, you need someone below you. And in her case, when she was writing, it was about keeping Black people under people. So no matter how poor and ignorant and how failing your life is, as long as you're white, you can find someone below you and help you feel better. And fascism is about that. It's about keeping power under all circumstances. And you read about it in Iran, where women are the beginning of the revolution, and they'll do anything. The Ayatollah, I'm probably going to get shot. Khomeini, who I thought he was a religious person. That's another thing. Religion be careful what you think is religion. They're shooting people from the roof, regardless. And also they always have to find someone to be angry at. So if you read about Iran, people are on the roof shooting at people praying. And it was called a massacre. And those people also are a minority in Iran. So their excuse was we have to do this to support the homeland. We have to stop these people who, there can't be any mix. There can't be, it's wonderful to have a whole group of people that is all mixed. People of color, people from other countries. We've been brought up that way. Immigrants, that's the great dream of America. And yet we're all uncomfortable and we don't mix. And that's what happens, for instance, in Iran, where they call a certain group a minority and they have to go to war with them. And it hopefully bolsters everyone else. It doesn't always work. And we're seeing it fall apart in Russia, I hope. But maybe that's my opinion. We have to be careful of opinions. But this was really important to me, hearing about fascism, because it named it. It's a whole group of attributes that I think in my practice goes completely against that. Feeling the texture of our lives, settling the self on the self, becoming who you are. You are you and nobody else. It's layers of us coming together, each person. It's a wonderful thing, but it's not so great for fascism. So I'm not proponing, what's the word? Proponing isn't the right word. But anyway, I wanted to understand fascism clearly. And it's not that hard to understand, is what I realized. We've seen it over and over again. And usually it's one of the things that hit me was Christianity against other religions. And recently, I read an article in the New Yorker about abortion. And they were talking about in Mexico in 2021, they used to have no abortion, and now abortion is legal. And it's because women kept standing up and kept fighting. But now some of those women, particularly one, felt they needed to help the people in the United States, the women in the United States. And she was very smart. She went to San Miguel Allende, where there are a lot of US people there that have left the country. And there are a lot of old hippies. And she kept referring to them as old hippies. She brought together a bunch of old hippies because she knew there would be an opening. And I like that because I'm an old hippie. And I realized, had it pretty good. And we owe some help now. So I was glad to hear that. She went to these old hippies and they organized. First, they were scared, and then they thought, we can't not do it. So she helped them organize how to get money and then get pills and how to bring them to the US. And each one did one thing and never passed it on. So it was very hard to get caught. But she was very smart, and she helped organize the old hippies. Old hippies need a little organization because we were anti-organization. But sometimes it's really, really good to be organized. And I was thinking about it, and they kept saying how the Catholic Church was really for abortion in Mexico, and they had to go against it, which was not easy. And I thought, the Catholic Church. Now, you know, in New Mexico, we have the most pedophiles in the churches of any other state. Most people in New Mexico don't even know this. And I know this not in some vague, abstract way. I know it from people who've been here. And why that is in 1950, it's called the, I think it's the Order of Pericles in the Jemez, was a retreat place. And when any time there was any problem of pedophilia with a priest or anybody in the church, they were sent to the Order of Pericles in the Jemez for a 6-month program that the Catholic Church thought that would take care of them. They thought they figured out a program that would help them. And what was included in it, and I know because I know the doctors, was taking estrogen, which is a female hormone. They thought that would help, which was ridiculous, but they thought they had a program. And after 6 months, they said that these people were fine, and they were all placed in small churches and small towns in New Mexico. So New Mexico, you know, people, especially back then, I think New Mexico was just a wasteland and you could do anything there, you know, discover the bomb and test for it in southern New Mexico. But so we're full of pedophiles. And I thought, you know, after all that, and you see in Santa Fe, a lot of the church property is being sold off because they need money for all the trials and to give money to people who win. And so they're quite hit at the knees, and yet have a little humility. You know, when you've been really struck, shut up for a while, keep quiet, digest this. Don't talk about anti-abortion, please. Just keep quiet for a while. But no, when I read about Mexico, it's all about abortion in the name of Catholicism, in the name of Christianity. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this in the Zen talk, but it seems logical to me that sometimes it's good to just shut up. And it's good for us to shut up and pay attention, not hide. At least read the newspaper. So I'm going to check the time. Oh, there's not very much time. Okay, I have a little more time. So I'm going to go, I'm paying attention to this. And things that I used to take as normal are no longer normal. I've always been aware of enslavement and slavery, but we're aware of it, but we go about our happy lives. Well, today, actually, I went past a window and they were very proud. And these are good people. I don't mean that. There's so many layers to it, but I need to say this because I saw it today. There was a photograph of about 1,000 people looking. It must have been at a, I don't know, not volleyball game. I don't know what it was. It was a gathering. I don't know when or where, but it was a big gathering. And they said, this is the family of this town. They meant, you know, we're all part of family and stuff. There wasn't one person of color in that whole picture. Now, before I might not have noticed it. Now, when I look, I feel embarrassed for them as though they're showing their genitals. I can't help feeling that way, that there's not one person of color. And I've seen that other places where we're not even aware. We don't have the right or the bandwidth not to be aware of those things anymore. It's so important to our own well-being, to our own ability to function, to allow other people. And that's what fascism does. It narrows it down to one group. They're in power and everybody else isn't okay. So you can watch as a Zen practitioner when you start thinking black and white. I don't mean skin. I mean black and white, meaning this is bad and this is good. So maybe I'm not talking, oh, there's a little bell there. Maybe I'm not talking as a well-behaved Zen person now. I don't know, but I certainly care. And I want to just say that I was also reading. Now you're thinking, oh, Natalie, please stop reading. I'm reading a lot. And reading is a wonderful thing. Bob Dylan, as you must know, had opened, he didn't open, but there's a library opened in Tulsa. Right next, it's a block long, and half of it is for Woody Guthrie, and the other half is for Bob Dylan. And I was reading about it and reading about Tulsa, and they went on about how great Tulsa was. I thought, isn't Tulsa the place 100 years ago where we had, and it was recognized, I think in June, it was recognized about Tulsa and the destruction 100 years ago of a very well-functioning Black community in Tulsa, and how it was completely destroyed and denied. And they went on about how beautiful Tulsa was. Well, yeah, I've been to Tulsa. It's good. There's some good things in there, but we also have this history, and we can't forget it. You don't condemn Tulsa, but you're aware of it. We're aware. How do we function? We're aware of things. We wake up. It doesn't mean I'll never go to Tulsa and see the Bob Dylan show. I'll go to Tulsa, but I'm going also with that awareness about a whole Black community that was destroyed. This is important. But I want to, most of you know how much I love Bob Dylan, and there are a bunch of very Zen men, actually, who have really studied Bob Dylan, and they keep waiting for him to come forward as a Buddhist, but he never does. But I love this, that he was quoted. Life isn't about finding yourself or finding anything. Life is about creating yourself and creating things. That makes it so fluid. Life isn't about finding yourself or finding anything. Life is about creating yourself and creating things. So it's very fluid. Fascism isn't. We want to stay fluid, which means we want to practice. We want to wake up. Not just wake up to an afterlife. I don't know if there is one, or what's going to happen when we die. But right now, there's so much to wake up to, and to hold it with equanimity. Is that the right word, equanimity? Equanimous. Anyway, whether I get the right word or not. And this morning over breakfast, I was feeling such gratitude toward Bob Dylan, because not like me, he saved everything. As though he knew who he was. He had a bag of stuffed fan mail from the 60s that he sent them in a big saddlebag. None of it had been opened, but he knew to keep it. He never read any of it, but he kept it. And we'll get to study him for years ahead. A very autonomous human being who I consider the Shakespeare of our time. And that he got to be in a lineage next to Woody Guthrie is really wonderful. In Oklahoma. He is from the Midwest, but he doesn't say, I'm not going to go to Oklahoma. You know, Oklahoma, I'm not going to Tulsa, you know, because 100 years ago, they did something terrible. He, you know, of course, he got a lot of money for it too, I'm sure, but he had that vision to save this stuff. And I could just go on, but I think that I've said enough. That don't look for fairness, don't look for logic, but read and listen and pay attention. And when it's time, stand up. Please stand up. That's what I think we're doing, is trying to build our spines. What does Roshi Jones say? A soft front, but a strong back. So we can stand up. Maybe we get shot, but you stand up. Okay, I don't think there's I guess this setup, there's no question and answer, right?
Well, there could be, if anybody in the Zendo would like to ask a question. And there's also 80 people on the YouTube channel. And if you'd like to take questions there, they can put them in the chat and I could
okay, we only have a few minutes, but sure. Yeah, if there are any questions.
So first in the Zendo, does anyone raise your hand if you're, physical hand? They're looking around at each other like, do I dare ask? Let's see.
You don't have to worry. The questions can be really dumb. It's good to be dumb. It's sort of a foundation for Zen, I think. Don't presume anything. Anyone from the chat? Noah?
I'm looking at it. I'm not seeing anything right now.
I'm worried about all of you.
What if we're afraid?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. You're afraid, or you don't think you're smart enough, or Natalie's off the wall and I won't tell her. When Katagiri Roshi, I've talked. Good, we have a question.
Yeah. There was some issue with the audio.
Oh.
I think they want to ask you a question.
Ye old computers.
Speak really loudly and the mic's up here.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure. I'm just curious as to what made fascism come up as something that you wanted to share. I feel like it's something you feel is around the corner or is happening now and you want to warn us, but yeah. I don't want to think for you.
Yes, that's how I feel. I feel that, and it's been said a lot that we're tending toward fascism. But if you probably ask a Black person, they've experienced fascism for a long time in this country. But yeah, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with the voting, with where we're going, with the abortion, that, it's become illegal to get an abortion in a lot of this country. I'm concerned about the Supreme Court, that it's become political, not fair. Yeah, I want us to wake up before it's too late. Thank you for asking.
Natalie, a couple questions from the chat. One, just a simple, what's the name of the retired teacher group in Santa Fe?
Oh, Renaissance. RENASCE. I don't know. You have to.
I think it's RENASAN or RENESAN. And Monshin and Shoryu just gave a talk there about Upaya.
Oh, great.
And then another question, how do we stand up when we're not organized?
Well, I think the first thing is you stand up in yourself. Really deeply understand what that means for you. And then organize from there. That's number one. And yeah, because I think it's very easy to get into communities as a way to hide out and a way to be secure and not stand up. So I think that especially if you're as Zen students, we have to learn how to stand up in us. And then from there, I think moment by moment, it takes care of itself. But I think that's important. And also to reach out.
Thank you, Natalie. Maybe we have time for one more. Dear Natalie, there is a left and right wing fascism. Some believe it only belongs to the other side.
Not black or white, not bad or good. Anything that's frozen and solidified. And maybe the left is solidified. Didn't Mao begin as a leftist, or a lot of rebellions in Africa? And then they took over and became dictators. So it's about not freezing, not solidifying. That, they're examining, looking at, chewing on, digesting what is real. An apple is real. What else could be real?
Beautifully said, Natalie, and that kind of speaks to the question I was having of if you could say more about how our sitting practice, our Zen practice, what does that have to do with standing up, being, knowing what's up?
Sitting is so wonderful. I mean, I love to sit, but what sitting has to do with it is you get a relationship with your own mind. Before I sat, I didn't know I thought so much, and that my mind was constantly creating thoughts, and that I wasn't in control. And you get a relationship with your body and with the limits of where you are and where someone else is. Yes, there's wonderful merging too, but something about sitting, sometimes you don't know what you think or feel. And I'm not saying think, we live in discursive thinking, yada, 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 yada. And what we learn is, what do we really think, feel, and see below that? That's what you want. Who am I? Who are you? And maybe there is no who are you or who am I. There's moment to moment life. What did Bob Dylan say? Life isn't about finding yourself or finding anything. Because we think, I got it now. This is who I am. I'm writing. I'm not a writer. I can't, if I freeze myself that way, I can look back and say, well, I did a lot of books. But, you know, if I freeze myself with a book, I can't write another book. If I freeze myself in Zazen, it becomes very uncomfortable. It becomes very numb to sit time after time. It should be dynamic. I hope that answers it a little bit.
Well, Natalie, you always speak to the heart of the matter. So it answers it and it doesn't answer it. And I feel like your way of being is the answer.
Your way of being too, Kodo. You can take Kigaku, Noah, Kodo. Have we come to the end?
Well, if I get stuck in a box, you know, if I get stuck with one name, then you know, I'm solidified.
Harry,
Right?
maybe Harry.
Harry. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
As always, it's been a pleasure to have you in the cloud with us. Let me just see if there's any last things in the. Yeah, that's it from the YouTube. So we'll end with the 4 vows.